Welcome back, guys. Hope that you are doing great. So, let's continue our discussion on thermodynamics. So, let's recall what we have learned in the previous part. So, first of all, we started by defining what a system is, what is the surrounding, what is a wall. We also learned two types of wall, that is diathermic and adiabatic wall. Diathermic wall allows the exchange of heat and energy, whereas adiabatic wall does not allow the exchange of heat and energy. Then we learned about what is a macrostate and a microstate, how they are different. Then we learned about thermal equilibrium. We said that a system is in thermal equilibrium if there is no change in the thermodynamic parameters with time. Then we learned about the zeroth law. Zeroth law stated that if two systems are in thermal equilibrium separately with the third system, then they are in thermal equilibrium with each other. It also gave us a sense of temperature, and it states that if two systems are in thermal equilibrium, then their temperature is are same. Then we learned what is a heat. Heat is nothing but the energy which is in flow between 2 points with two different temperatures. Then we learned about internal energy. Internal energy is nothing but the sum total of all the kinetic energy and potential energy of the constituent particles. Then we derived the work done by a system, and we got a very important information that the work done by a system is nothing but the area under a PV graph. Now in this video we will see how the heat, internal energy and work done are related. You may notice that heat, internal energy, work done are nothing but all are different forms of energy. So we will see how these three are related. So, first law of thermodynamics relates the heat, the internal energy, and the work done. So, first law of thermodynamics states that delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. So, delta Q is nothing but the heat energy which is transferred to the system, or the heat energy which is released by the system. Delta U is the change in internal energy of the system. Delta W, or W, is nothing but the work done by the system or work done on the system. So in this equation you can see that these three things are nothing but three different forms of energy, and first law of thermodynamics relates these three forms of energy. Now, first law of thermodynamics is in accordance with the law of conservation of energy. So as you all know, that law of conservation of energy states that energy can be neither be created nor be destroyed. So you can see that here one form of energy is related to other two forms of energy, or you can say that how one form of energy can be converted to another two forms of energy. So let's try to understand this thing with the help of an example. So let's consider a balloon which is filled with air particles, and these air particles are being denoted by dots here. So let us give an heat energy delta Q to the system, that is the balloon. So what happens to this delta Q which we are given? According to law of conservation of energy, energy can be neither be created nor be destroyed. So something should happen to the heat energy which we have given to this balloon. So what has happened to the heat energy which we have given to the system? So one of the things which can happen is that this can result in increase in the internal energy of the system. That is, it may result in increasing the kinetic energy of the particles of the system. Okay, so that's one possibility. Now the another possibility is that the system can do work. The here the balloon expands. This is a well-known fact that whenever a balloon is heated, it expands. So so in this way, the balloon expands and it does a work. It can do both of them together also at the same time. That is, if when a heat energy is given to the system, it may result in increasing the kinetic energy of the system. At the same time, it may or it can result in expansion of the system, which in turn leads to the work done by the system. So this is how the three forms of energy are related, and this is quite a very important equation which you should know, and it's very important to know that this is something which is in accordance to the law of conservation of energy. Now there is a set of conventions which should be followed while we are using the equation which we have got from the first law of thermodynamics. So let's look into these conventions which we should follow. So the first convention is that if heat is supplied to the system, then the delta Q is taken as positive. Next, if heat is released by the system to the surrounding, then delta Q is taken as negative. Next, if the work is done on the system, then W is taken as negative. You can represent the work done by W or delta W. So if the work is done on the system, then it is taken as negative, and if the system does the work, then W is taken as positive. So the last two conventions which we follow in physics is quite opposite to that of the chemistry. If you see that in chemistry we take the work done on the system as positive and work done by the system as negative, but in the case of physics we take work done on the system as negative and work done by the system as positive. This is mainly because physicists are interested in knowing the outcome of the system or the productivity of the system. That's why we take the work done by the system as positive and work done on the system as negative. Now let's look into an example where we can use the first law of thermodynamics. So let the change in internal energy of a system be 50 joule when a work of 75 joule is done on the system. So what is delta Q and what can you understand from this? So if we directly put these values into the equation, so the change in internal energy is 50 joules, so delta U is 50 joule. Now we have doing a work on the system, so since we are doing a work on the system, this should be taken as negative, so minus 75 joule, and you get, and while after using the first law of thermodynamics we get that delta Q is equal to minus 25 joule. So minus denotes that the heat is released to the system, released to the surrounding. So here we have written that if heat is released by the system to the surrounding, then delta Q is taken as negative. So we have got delta Q as negative, that means heat is given to the surrounding. So how is this possible? We are doing a work on the system, and the system gives back energy to the surrounding in the form of heat. So how is this possible? We will try to understand this physical meaning of this negative heat which is given by the, or the negative the heat given by the system. So consider a cylinder here with air particles inside it, and this black thing represents the piston. So let us apply a pressure on this piston. So as we are applying a pressure on this piston, and this applied pressure should be greater than the pressure exerted by these air particles. So if the pressure exerted by this air, if the pressure which we exert and the pressure exerted by the air particle is same, then this piston will remain in equilibrium and will not move. So we are applying a pressure which is greater than the pressure exerted by the air particles inside the cylinder. So as a result, we are applying a pressure on this piston. The piston moves, and let this will be the final position of the piston. So what we have done here is that we have applied a pressure, which means that we have done a work on the system, that is here, the system here. And now as we have done a work on the system, you see that the particles have moved towards the left and the particles are very close. As a result, what happens is that these particles will collide more. So when these particles collide more, they have a more kinetic energy. And I have already said that the temperature and the mean velocity of the particles are related. So if the mean particles of the velocity or the kinetic energy increases, the temperature increases. So as a result of the work which we are doing here, the kinetic energy of the particles in the system increases. At the same time, the temperature also increases. So as a result, a point is reached when the temperature of the system becomes more than the surrounding. So what happens is that as there is a temperature difference between the surrounding and the system, there is a heat flow from the system to the surrounding as the system has more temperature than the surrounding. So shows this is an example which shows how heat can be given by the system to the surrounding. So this is a microscopic interpretation of how a system can give energy energy in the form of heat to the surrounding. Let us now learn about what is a path and what is a state variable. So when I discussed about the internal energy, I said that it is a state variable and there is another variable called path variable, and I told that we will in detail discuss about this state variable and what is a path variable. So let's discuss about it. So here is a PV graph. I have represented P along the y-axis and V along the x-axis. So let 1 be the initial state of the system and 2 be the final state of the system. So this system moves from the initial state to the final state along the two paths, can move along the two paths, that is path A and path B. So by path I mean two processes. By two processes, that is system 1 can reach the state 2 by a process A, or it can reach the state 2 by another process, that is B. So here this path A represent nothing but the relation between the pressure and volume in the process A, and this path B represents the relation between the pressure and volume in process B. So let P1 V1 and T1 be the initial temperature of the system, and P2 V2 and T2 be the final temperature of the system. So I have already said that the internal energy is nothing but a state variable. It depends only on the present state of the system. That is, the internal energy of the system at position 1 or at state 1 is depends only on the pressure, temperature and volume, and the internal energy of the system at state 2 depends only on the pressure, temperature and volume at state 2, that is P2, T2 and V2. Now the internal energy is independent of the path which it follows. If you go by the path A or go by path B, the internal energy is independent of the path which you follow. It only depends upon the final state. That is, the change in internal energy depends only on the final and initial state. It does not depend on whether you follow path A or follow path B. It's just the difference in the internal energy at final state and the internal energy at first state. Now, what is the case with work done and heat energy? As I have already discussed with you, the area under the PV graph gives nothing but the work done. So here you can see that the area under the A graph is this region, and the area under the graph of B is this region. You can see that the area under the graph A is more than the area under the graph B. So what does it say? It says that the system does a more work when it moves through the path A or when it goes through the process A than when the system goes through the path B or process B. So we see that work done depends upon the path which it has taken. So work done is nothing but a path variable. It's not a state variable. It depends upon the path which you follow. Now, you know that delta Q is related to delta U and W. Delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W or W by the first law of thermodynamics. Since delta U is path independent, it only depends on the initial and final state. So delta U is a constant. Now, what delta W changes with the path. For the path A, delta W is greater than path B. As a result, what happens? Delta Q for path A is greater than path B. So again, delta Q depends upon the path. So delta Q is a path variable. It is not a state variable. Hope it's clear to you what is meant by a path and state variable. The main thing which you should know here is that internal energy is a state function, and the change in internal energy is a state function. It does not depend upon the path which it follows. Either it follows a path A or it follows path B. But whereas the work done or the delta Q is a path function, that is, it depends upon whether you go by the path A or path B. By paths, I again remind you that it means a process, and this graph here represents how the pressure and volume is related in that particular process. For example, this graph represents how the pressure is, and volume are related in process A, and path B here represents the how the pressure and volume is related in process 2. Now let us introduce another thermodynamic quantity, that is heat capacity. So heat capacity S is equal to delta Q by delta T. Here delta Q is nothing but the change in heat energy, and delta T is the change in temperature. So let us try to understand what heat capacity means physically. For that, take this delta T to the left hand side. So you will get that delta T into S is equal to delta Q. So this says that by how much does the temperature change when a particular amount of heat is given to the system. So if a substance is having higher heat capacity, that means the change in temperature will be very less, and if a substance is having less heat capacity, that means the change in temperature will be high. Now the unit of heat capacity is joule per Kelvin. Now it's very important to note that S depends on the mass of the object. Consider two objects made up of same material, but one has higher mass than the another, and we give the same amount of heat to both of the system. So it's obvious that the system which is having less mass will have greater change in temperature than the object which is having higher mass. So in order to eliminate this mass dependence of heat capacity, we introduce the specific heat capacity, that is heat capacity divided by M, and its unit is joule per kilogram per Kelvin, and it's also measured in calorie. Now there is another heat capacity, that is molar specific heat capacity. So we get the molar specific heat capacity if we divide the heat capacity by number of moles. Here we have denoted, here I have denoted the number of moles by nu, and the unit is joule per mole per kilo. So the molar specific heat capacity depends on the substance, that is the molar specific heat capacity of water is different from that of any other metal, and it's also important to note that the molar specific heat capacity depends on temperature, that is the molar specific heat capacity at a particular temperature may not be the molar specific heat capacity at another temperature. Now we will introduce two sub cases of molar specific heat capacity, that is molar specific heat capacity at constant volume. So here what happens is that we measure the change in heat energy and change in temperature at a constant volume. So that it's denoted by a subscript V, and it's denoted by CV, and CV is equal to 1 by N into delta Q by delta T, measured at a constant volume. Now when this delta T is very small, this equation turns to the differential form, that is CV is equal to 1 by N into delta Q by delta T at constant volume. The V here, the subscript, denotes that the change in heat energy and change in temperature is measured at a constant volume. Now the second one is molar heat capacity at constant pressure, and it's denoted by Cp. Cp equal to 1 by N into delta Q by delta T. The change in heat energy and change in temperature is measured at constant pressure. Now again, when this delta t becomes very small, this changes to the differential form, that is Cp equal to 1 by n into dq by dt at constant pressure. In the next chapter, that is the kinetic theory of gases, you will find out the values of Cp and Cp for different molecules of gases, and you will see that Cv and Cp depends upon the degree of freedom of the particles of the gas. And there is another very important relation which connects Cp and Cv, that is, in the case of ideal gas, Cp minus Cv is equal to R. So this is a very important relation which you should know, and we are going to derive this equation, that is Cp minus Cv equal to R. But I will use a method which is quite different from that of the NCERT. I will be using a bit more advanced form to get this relation, but I'm doing that because in the procedure we will get some other important results which will be very useful for the entrance point of view. That's why I will be deriving this relation in a quite a different way, and it involves quite bit knowledge on calculus. You should have a bit knowledge on calculus, but if you don't have that, just don't bother about it. But there are some important relation which we get in between. Try to just remember these equation, and when you have learned these differential things or calculus, you can come back and check that out. So now let's derive the relation between Cp and Cv. And for ideal gas, you know that Pv is equal to nRT. Here n denotes the number of moles. So now if you differentiate this equation with respect to T, and if you use the product rule, you get P dV by dt plus V dP by dt is equal to nR. And if you take this dt into the right hand side, you will get P dV plus V dP equal to nR dt. And from first law of thermodynamics, you know that delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. And when this delta or change becomes very small, this turns to the differential form, and you get dq equal to du plus p dv. Now let us focus on at constant volume. So at constant volume, this dv turn becomes 0, and you will get dq equal to du, and you know that dq equal to n into cv dt. So we have we have introduced cv is equal to 1 by n into dq by dt. So dq is equal to n into cv into dt. Now since dq equal to du, you get that du equal to ncv dt. Now if we use this result and we put back this into this equation, we get a very important result, that is dq equal to n into cv into dt plus pdv. So this is the first important equation which you get. Now next, if we have derived here that pdv plus vdp equal to nr dt. Now if we take vdp to the right side, you get pdv equal to nr dt minus vdp. Now if you substitute that equation in this, you get dq equal to ncv dt plus nr dt minus vdp. So if you take dt common, you will get dq equal to n into cv plus n into r into dt minus vdp. Now we will use this equation at constant pressure. At constant pressure, what happens is that this terms goes to 0. So dq equal to ncv plus nr dt. Now we have already know that. Now we take this dt and bring into the left hand side. So we get dq by dt at constant pressure is equal to ncv plus nr. So as we have done at constant pressure, I have denoted here by a substitute p, saying that this is at constant pressure. Now we already know that 1 by n into dq by dt at constant pressure is nothing but Cp. So we get Cp equal to Cv plus R. We have taken n common here and bring it to the left hand side. You get 1 by n into dq by dt at constant pressure. So that's nothing but Cp, and Cp is equal to Cv plus R, and here we get the very important result, Cp minus Cv equal to R. Now we know that Cp equal to Cv plus R. So if we introduce this information here in this equation, if you take an outside, you will get Cv plus R, and we know that Cp equal to Cv plus R. Then we get the another important equation, that is dq equal to ncp dt minus vdp. So this is a quite different from the NCERT one, but here you see that we get two very important equation, which will be very useful for you for the entrance point of view, um, and we get the result Cp minus Cv equal to R in this procedure. Now again, these two are the equations which we derived, and as you know, the general specific heat capacity C is equal to 1 by N into dq by dt. Now if we use this information, again this first and second equation changes to a different form. So if you take this N and dt to the left hand side, you will get that dq is equal to N into C into dt. So if you substitute that in the first equation, you get N into C into dt is equal to NCV dt plus PdV, and again N into C into dt is equal to N into Cp dt minus Vdp. So these four equations are quite important for entrance point of view. For this, first of all, you should know a bit about calculus. So if you know about calculus, this will be a really helpful for you for the entrance, these four equations, especially for JEE Advanced and JEE Main. Hope that you are clear with these four equations. Now let me introduce another very important convention which you should know in thermodynamics, that is in a PV graph, when the system moves from left to right, the area under the graph is taken as positive, that is work done is positive, and vice versa when it is moving from right to left, that is when it moves from right to left, the area under the graph is taken as negative, that is the work done is negative. Now let us try to understand this with the help of graph. So here I have taken a PV graph, P along the y-axis and V along the x-axis, and I have drawn here 6 paths, and you can see that all these paths starts from the left side and ends in the right side. So by convention we take the area under these graphs as positive, that is the graphs in which the system moves from left to right, the area under the graph we take it as positive, that is work done as positive. Now if the graph moves from right to left, that is the process progress from right to left, then we take the area under the graph as negative, that is the work done as negative. So in all these cases you can see that the process moves from right hand side to the left hand side. In all these cases it moves from the right side to left side, so the area under the graph is taken as negative here, and the area under the graph is taken as positive if it moves from the left hand side to right hand side. So let us now try to solve a question based upon the things which we have learned so far. So here is the question: a given mass of ideal gas changes its state from A to B along 3 paths, that is 1, 2 and 3. If Q1, Q2 and Q3 are the heat supplied along the respective path, then what's the relation between these heat supplied? So here is the graph, PV graph, P along the y-axis and V along the x-axis, and these are the 3 paths by which the system goes from state A to state B. Here is path 1, path 2 and path 3. Q1, Q2 and Q3 represents the heat supplied to the system. Now once again I am reminding you, the path represents the process, and it tells us about how the P and V are related along that process. So here we have 3 paths, 1, 2 and 3. Now, according to first law of thermodynamics, delta Q equal to delta U plus delta W. Now, as you know that internal energy is a state function and delta U is independent of the path. That is, if if the system moves along the path 1 or along the path 2 or along the path 3, the change in internal energy is same in all the case. So we don't have to bother about this thing, and delta U is a constant is constant or same for all the three different paths here. Now, then the only thing which changes is delta Q and delta W. And already we know that the change in or the work done is nothing but the area under the graph. So area under the graphs gives the work done, and I have already mentioned before that the convention which we use is that if the system moves from left side to right side, the area under the graph is taken as positive. So the work done is positive, that is work is done by the system. So as you can see that along path 1 the work done is the least, then it's along the path 2, then the largest amount of work is done along the path 3. And since that's why we get the relation that W3 is greater than W2 is greater than W1, and since delta U is a state function, it's the same for all the three paths. Therefore, from the first law of thermodynamics, we get that Q3 is greater than Q2 greater than Q1. So option C is the answer. So I hope that solving this problem and the discussion which we have done in this session, that is part 2, has helped you to understand what really is first law of thermodynamics. So we will continue our discussion in next